Welcome to Hangout from Times Ascent. My name is Sujit John and I will moderate this discussion today. We will be discussing careers in data science and machine learning. I'm in Bangalore and I cover technology and interact constantly with the numerous tech companies and technology professionals here. And there's absolutely no question, data science and machine learning stroke AI are the most happening words today. The biggest banks, the biggest retailers, the biggest aerospace companies, automotive companies in the world are setting up engineering and R&D centers in India, and many of them in Bangalore. And much of the work in those centers revolve around creating analytics platforms using data science and machine learning to understand their customers and operations better. To discuss careers in data science and machine learning, we have two very accomplished professionals in the space with us today. We have Nandan Sengupta. Nandan is based in London and that's where he is speaking to us from. Nandan is college ambassador for India in the Cambridge Marketing College in Cambridge, UK. But that really does not describe the kind of work he has done and is doing. He's doing a lot of work around data analysis, digital marketing, on the integration of IoT and digital marketing, on data visualization, on sensory marketing. I was discussing this with him a couple of days ago and he has some very interesting case studies to share. He has been associated with organizations across the world. Welcome, Nandan. And we have with us Dr. Angsman Ghosh. Angsman is based in Singapore and that's where he is speaking to us from. Angsman is head of data science at Sony's R&D operations. He moved to Sony recently. Prior to this, he led data science projects at Grab, one of the leading technology companies in Southeast Asia, offering ride-hailing transport services, food delivery, and payment solutions. Prior to that, he worked as strategy and analytics leader at Business Star TV, Target, Spice, and Wipro. He's also a visiting professor at the IITs, IIMs, and XLRI. Welcome, Angsman.
Hello.
Those who are viewing this can send in questions on the chat box and I'll put them to Nandan and Angsman. Let me start by asking Nandan and Angsman to give us an idea of what data science and machine learning are and why it's so much in demand today. Nandan, can I ask you to go first? Nandan, we can't hear you. Are you muted?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was muted, my fault. Right. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about is the application side. And well, I know Angsman for quite some time, and he is actually, the data scientist who you would like to hear too, basically, because he would be able to explain that part more efficiently. So what I'm going to tell you over here is that I would request you all, including the attendee, to consider any day of your life, just one normal day, the moment you wake up in the morning and start checking your WhatsApp message and then your Facebook updates and so on and so forth. The moment you start doing that, you start creating data in the data space, in the cyberspace. So each of your move, each of your behaviors and everything are being collected by thousands of apps directly, or a few more thousands of apps indirectly through their collaborating apps. And those data are really creating a kind of huge database based on not only you, but also on other human beings. And that way, the organizations across the world, they are building up their individual customer profiles based on which they will send out their marketings, they will send out their general communications, their integrated marketing communication, and so on and so forth. This is one part. The other part is probably in our life when we are doing this data thing knowingly or unknowingly, that will be helping us to improve our lifestyle as well. Maybe in a few years time, you will start getting your preferred items the kind of light you like, the kind of music you like, the kind of air conditioner you like. Your car probably will get ready before you start your car. Everything based on your behavioral data, which has been analyzed by this customer experience management companies, as we call them, CX, and offering that to you. So that is where the total implication of data footprints and data usage are coming to consolidate into a practical thing. So I think I will just leave it at that. Maybe during the webinar, we might be having other instances to provide you with certain examples.
Absolutely. Okay, I'll come back to you, Nandan. Angshuman, exactly. I mean, give an overview of data science and machine learning and why it's become so hot today.
Okay, so that's a great question. And before I get into why it is getting hot or not, probably I'll just try to define few of the terms, because I see there is a lot of misconception or different people use the terms interchangeably or in slightly different context. So I first define at least 3 or 4 key terms, and then I'll probably discuss why some of them are becoming so hot or great career options. So first of all, any question?
No. Carry on.
Okay. So first of all, I think when you are talking about data science, I'll talk about that. But there is a bigger umbrella term which probably encompasses some of these other terms, and which is something I think Sujit has mentioned, that AI, right? Artificial intelligence, and this has been there for quite some time. Probably from 1940s or 50s, or maybe in some areas before that. And this is basically when we create intelligent machines, right? Machines which can replicate some of the intelligence of a human being. So it's a very broad term and kind of umbrella term. So you can consider AI as the big circle, which probably comprises of many of the other things that we will be discussing today. So if a computer can add 2 plus 2 and say the answer is 4, that is also a basic form of intelligence, right? So even that is AI. And today, I think when we are talking about facial recognition, right? Computer can read your face and tell who the person is, whether the person is happy or sad, whatever it is. That is a very advanced application of AI, right? But all of this is AI, and that's a broad umbrella, or you can consider it as a bigger circle. Within that, we had a lot of computer applications, algorithm being developed over a period of time. However, earlier when we developed computer algorithms, we coded them line by line, saying that, okay, do this, then print this, then do that, like that. However, in the modern era, as I think Nandan rightly pointed out, that we have so much of data being available, right? So in the modern era, we have shifted a little bit from those computer algorithms from machine learning algorithms. And how are they different is, in that case, in case of machine learning, we are not telling machine exactly all the steps to do. We give the machine a broad framework what it is supposed to do, but then we feed a lot of data to the machine, and from that data itself the machine learns, and that's why machine learning. Yes, we probably probably supervise or guide the machine, but the machine learns from data. That is where machine learning. And within machine learning, there is a new area which has emerged, which I will not get into much detail, which is again a subset of machine learning, which is deep learning, where we use neural network to solve similar kind of problems. Now, data science doesn't fall into any of this specific group. I'll say it is a cross-sectional area which can use AI, machine learning, or deep learning, but fundamentally to solve some business or societal or economic problem using data in a scientific way. So data scientists might use statistics, they might use a computer programming, or they might use deep learning depending on the context. But fundamentally, they are using all these tools to solve some problem or create certain benefits for certain people. So that is how I'll define the term. And now coming to why data science and some of these areas are becoming very popular, and I would thank Nandan because he has given the background with which actually we can understand why it is becoming so big. Because when you talk about data science, the most important and fundamental part of it is data, right? Without data, there can be no data science. And hence, we have a lot of data now because of internet, social media, mobile phone, and all of that. So first reason of these fields becoming big is availability of lot of data, right? Second reason is we also can store so much data today very cheaply and very easily because storage has become very cheap. And similar to storage, the processing has also become very cheap. We can process that data. So three main important reasons are a lot of data availability, storage, and processing. And the fourth reason is also that we have a lot of free tools like R and Python, which anybody can learn, anybody can use, very simple to use and free to use. So these are the four reasons I think these fields are becoming very big, and as both of you have mentioned, different industries are adopting it, and as a career it is emerging as one of the best career options. Over to you, Sujit.
Sujit, we cannot hear you, so please check your mic.
Maybe go to the top and you see audio option and select unmute or something. We can't see his video also. Should we continue, Nandanda?
Yeah, I think you should. Yeah, we should. You
Yeah.
carry on with what you are saying. I think
Okay.
he'll be joining us. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe let me continue and maybe I'll share some questions or something, then you can share. So I think as we mentioned that, AI is a broad umbrella term. Within that we have machine learning, within that we have deep learning, and data science is a cross-functional area where we use data to solve different business problems in a scientific way. And as I mentioned, there are four reasons. I'm just repeating why it has become very popular now. First reason is a lot of data, as Nandanda has mentioned. Then we have storage processing, which has become cheaper and faster. And we also have a lot of free tools available. So there was an article by Harvard Business Review in 2012, which actually used the term that data scientist is the sexiest career of the millennium, or recent time. And that is one article probably which has played a very important role. Currently, if you see in America, average salary for data science is going at 120,000 US dollars, which is a very high amount. And Glassdoor also ranks it as one of the best jobs. I think Nandanda has been doing a lot of work in the digital and data space. So Nandanda, you would like to share some experience or some insights from your projects or experiences in these areas? And
Sure. Why not? So what I'll do is can you see my screen? Is it is my screen shared? Yeah, okay. Let me just pull up a few of my projects, or rather slides, and show you how things work in that particular area, right?
Yeah.
So I will not get into the very details, of course. So what I'll do over here is this. Just a minute, give me a second. Okay, let us think about these devices. Some of those devices are very well known to us these days. We call it Alexa, but the system is called actually Echo. Alexa is the triggering code. Alexa, saying Alexa would trigger it. Google Home Assistant, Siri, and these things over here, these are not well known in India probably, but these are in Western countries. These are basically Wi-Fi enabled temperature controller, which we use. In fact, in my house also there is one, which we use to control the temperature of the house in the cold countries smartly, and so on and so forth. But what happens is, when you use one of those instruments, it records what I'm doing, and it is sending that particular thing, that particular information to its owner. I am not its owner. Its owner, this Echo's owner is Amazon, Google Hub, Google, These things owner is someone called a company called Hive. Now they are collecting all the data, and what happens in this process is that in a typically built house in any standard Western country I'm talking about, but in India, some of those things will not be here just because of the difference in the lifestyles, like heating. This is heating, but washing machine will be there, and fridge, refrigerator will be there, light will be there, and each and everything are smart these days. That means they are IoT, that is, they are internet enabled. They can connect with the internet, which means they can generate data. Now think about your smart TV. Many of us have smart TV these days. You can send the spoken command to a smart TV. You can send a spoken command to a Google Assistant or Apple Siri. What does that mean? That means if you allow these mics to be active all the time, when you are saying the command with the triggering word like hey Siri or hey Google or Alexa, hi Alexa, whatever, then only they act against your command. All the other time they are listening to what you are saying, which means they are listening, recording, and sending those data. It's not identifying you as the person, but it is identifying you as the internet protocol that you are talking from, that or you are sending the data from. Now all these data are being analyzed somewhere. So I am sure some of you might have come across such situations where you were discussing, let's say, you wanted to go to a place for a holiday, and the next day you start getting advertisement of holiday trips. So that thing happened because when you discuss this thing, one of your devices listen to it, send it for analysis. So that's how our life is being actually controlled by data, not in a bad way, but in a lively way. So these days you have all your apps on your mobile phone. From your mobile phone, you can control your TV, air conditioner, lights. You can make mood lightings. You can control your robot vacuum cleaner. You can control your smoke sensor, so on and so forth. And while doing that, someone out there, unfortunately, is monitoring all these data that are coming from all sorts of internet enabled smart instruments and from your social network. Even when you are putting a smiley, that is being captured. And honestly, those smileys and emoticons, I should say, are being analyzed to know what kind of person you are. What do you like? What do you dislike? And based on these data, as Angshuman very rightly pointed out, something called artificial intelligence are being put into picture, and they are helping the systems understand what kind of person you are, and accordingly what kind of product could be sold to you, what kind of experience could be provided to you, what kind of services you might need, how you can improve your lifestyle, and so on and so forth. So that is how the data thing are going to be in our employment market as well. Now, you can jolly well understand that if that is the thing that is being considered over here, then probably data scientists are of course there, but there are people who are not specifically essentially data scientists or engineers for that matter. They are social scientists. They understand behavior, psychology. They understand marketing, management. They understand history, how trends work, how patterns work. So basically what we are seeing over here, and of course I haven't mentioned many, there are many. How the things work these days are that this whole data science and data application thing, in tandem with digital marketing, digital footprint, IoT, and other smart living options, they are generating a number of employments, not only in engineering or technical area, but also in the genre of sociology, humanities, management, and so on and so forth. So this is basically the overview of how the employment are being generated. So with that, I will check if Sujit is back on, and if he wants to take any questions or anything, then we can probably do something else. Sujit, over
I don't
to you.
get back, so I think we can continue. Maybe very beautiful and interesting things I think you shared. So maybe I think I have something I am getting curious about, and I think some of our audience also may want to know, as you mentioned, and we understand that in India some of these things will probably start, and probably in London a lot of things we are seeing day to day. So if you have all these smart devices, yes, social media everybody is using, but as you mentioned, if your light is also capturing data, your refrigerator is
Oh,
capturing
yes.
data, washing machine, microwave, that's very fascinating. And I think you showed us a beautiful screen where with an app or with your mobile you can control them, right? So which is brilliant. But I think something in between you also mentioned that some of these devices are listening to you and recording all your emoticon and smiles and everything, so kind of if they're watching you all that time, so there is, I think, some of our audience also might have this concern about the privacy, and if somebody can get all our data, how it is being used. So do you want to share anything on that?
I certainly will, Anshuman, but I think, before that, would you like to say something on how these data are captured just on non-persona IP basis, and how they are stored and organized and processed? I think you are a better person to explain that than me. Honestly.
Sure. I think we'll come back to that other thing for later. Maybe let me discuss. I think beautifully, I think Nandan has described that there are so many social media websites, but that's not it. Now we have IoT and smart devices. So that's, I think, links back very well to the first point that I mentioned, why this kind of technologies are becoming so important for all of us, is because of all these devices, all these technologies, we have a lot of data. But once you have a lot of data, that is also challenging. I remember one point of time in my career when you used to do market research, the getting a lot of data used to be a problem. And now we are in the era of big data where we have too much of data. I think Nandan and I was discussing something. I think Sujit is back, so we welcome Sujit, and maybe Sujit, you can probably continue and ask something. So we basically discussed, Nandan very beautifully discussed some of the experiences that he is having there, IoT devices, smart home, different social media websites, and we touched upon a little bit on how they are generating a lot of data and how that is giving the rise to data science as a field as well as a career option. Over to you, Sujit.
Mute.
We're not able to hear you.
Unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can. Please go ahead.
Yeah. I'm sorry, my system crashed. Something happened. I did something, and it all went.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Technology,
So I listened to some parts of what you are saying. Yeah, there's a question on this educational background. Can you give what is an educational background that will give you an edge in an ML career? That probably who Anshuman wants to take that.
I think so. Yeah.
Nananda touched upon little bit probably. I'll just share some thoughts and then I'll pass in on to him if he wants to add something. So he rightly pointed out that yes, we are talking about data scientist, science, and technology, but he rightly mentioned that this field is not only for the technologies, right? Once we have the data, somebody from the psychology or sociology or some different background have to analyze and understand the social trend and how they are shaping the usage of the devices as well as the data. Also, we might need some marketing person to make use of data and send some communication or decide what product can be sold to whom. So I think there are a lot of different related roles which are there, which will be from economics to marketing to psychology, sociology, and even there can be a lot of consultants whose job might be just to make people understand these things and act as a bridge between the technology and the business person. So all of that role will be definitely there. I'll probably just since I have been working more in the data science field, so I'll talk about few core skills and technologies which are required. I think in
Okay.
terms of background, you can come from any field and you can learn. So I think anybody can learn this thing.
Absolutely.
However, you have to develop these skills and learn it. For example, I think once you have data, you have to make sense. Yes, we have a lot of unstructured data, but we also have structured data and numbers. That is a very core part of it. And whenever you are doing something with number, right? I mentioned 2 plus 2 equal to 4. That is basic arithmetic, right? And if you go to complex, bigger data set, it will get little bit more complex. You'll probably use statistics for summarizing a distribution of data. You'll compute mean, median, standard deviation, some of those things, right? So definitely mathematics and statistics forms a core of it. So if you have a background of it, that will definitely help. If not, don't worry. There are a lot of institutions and courses, and I think Times Group can also help you find some of them, and they will help you learn. So even if you don't have the background, go and learn these skills. Second skill, as I mentioned, we have a lot of data now. Earlier, we could do simple calculation with hand with a calculator, but if I have to tell you, to calculate 2 plus 2, you can do without anything. But if I tell you, I have 100 million user of Times Group, and they use my site different amount of time, and find out what is the average time spent by each of those users, right? Problems
Okay.
remain similar, but because of the scale of the data, you can't do it manually, and that is where you need to use computers. You have to use computer programming. So computer programming is the second skill that you have to develop, and
Any
third
particular
skill is
language you
something.
would recommend? Any particular
Sorry.
languages, any particular computer programming language you would recommend?
So I think there are a lot of debates around it, and as you will understand that people, if they use certain language, they fall in love with it, and they have a preference for it. But since we are talking about career options and jobs, in the job market, if I see, Python is the most demanded language now. Second would probably be R, and of course we will have a lot of databases. And to get the data, do some processing of the data, SQL is very important. So I would say Python, SQL, and R are most important in terms of job. But yes, if you are working in a specific industry or company, it might change. For example, some of the pharma or finance companies still use SAS, which is very popular with some of those companies. So if you are targeting that field, you might need to learn that. If you are working in academics, like I did my PhD, where people love to use SPSS or some of those other softwares. So if you are planning to do a PhD, it might be different. But if you are looking for a career in corporate, I think Python will help you a lot, and along
Okay.
with SQL and R.
Okay. Okay. Anything more? Sorry, I interrupted you upon the programming language. Is there anything else that you want to add to that?
Yeah. So third thing which I was mentioning, and which is equally or probably more critical, is the domain knowledge. So if you are working in a particular domain, that's also very important. Many times people ignore it. They think, oh, I know my statistics and I can, create machine learning algorithm. But in your domain, to understand what is the objective of the business, what is the important outcome, and to achieve that, what are the features or variables I'll consider, that requires a lot of domain knowledge, and that of course you can't learn overnight. It of course takes some time to work in the field, but if you are interested in a particular domain, if you can get some understanding of that, like if you want to work in marketing, if you understand marketing at least broadly, that will help. If you are interested in media and you understand little bit about media, that would definitely help. Nandanda, you want to add anything to that?
Yes, actually, I would like to say that Angsman has been very, very right in saying this, that you cannot just depend on your data thing and
Yeah.
and say that you know your statistics and you are done. No, that is something one should really emphasize on, that you have to have the domain knowledge, and that is what Sujit, if you remember, we were talking the other day. I was telling you that this polymath approach is being sipped in into the whole employment area. That is, you know a bit of many things. You are specialist in one or two, but still you know a bit of many things. I
Yeah.
probably cited the example of Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci 600 years back, where they were known for their prowess in arts and literature and sculpture, but they were actually scientists and engineers, and they were the ones who dissected dead bodies and learned medical sciences, so on and so forth. So what they essentially did was they learned some domain knowledges for them to be able to apply their core knowledge into that domain. And that approach is exactly what we need today. If I would say, if someone goes onto the internet and check up some current employment opportunities in, let's say, in Amazon, in SAP, they will see that there are weird kind of employment opportunities like customer experience designer. What is that? No one knows. There is no course in customer experience designing. But if you go through this particular job descriptions, you will see either that customer experience designing job is based on data analysis or on data application, but in either case you will have to know a bit of both. So identify your core competency and have some of your augmented competencies in place as well. So yeah, I just want to add that. That's all.
That's really awesome. Yeah, probably I'll just add a small comment to it. Yeah, that's what summarizes what I think is required. And just to for summarizing for the audience, I can probably say you develop a T-shaped skill or competency. Why is it T-shaped? Because T, the head of it, is your core competency. So as Nandana mentioned, few areas. It can be psychology, it can be data science, it can be statistics. Develop that as your core or essence. But you also have this other part of the T, right? The vertical part. That is like you also understand, some part of other disciplines. So even if you're working data science, if you know about marketing, HR, psychology, anthropology, whatever, it might in some way help you. And you may not always be able to see it straightforward, but once you learn them, you'll be able to make those connections with somebody without such versatile knowledge will not be able to do. So I'll say, develop a T-shaped skill where you specialize in few areas, become expert, but also try to develop some skill and expertise in other related areas.
In India, what are the opportunities for doing something like that? Nandan, you've seen London, of course. You are in Singapore, Angsman. In India, is it easy? What would you recommend? Online or those MOOC kind of courses? You said take core things plus also the vertical experience in some sense in marketing and all of those. Doing both. Are there online courses? How would you recommend?
So maybe I'll just share my thoughts, and I don't think there is absolute right and wrong, right? It will depend on the person. So first I'll share what worked for me, I'll share in general. So I think for me, yes, I got little bit lucky because I did my computer engineering long back, and that time, more than a decade back, that time there was no data science. So of course I didn't think that computer science will be useful, or when I studied science or maths, I did not know that will be useful. So I got a little bit lucky, and also I did MBA there. I learned about business, and PhD helped me learn about statistics. So I'd say I got a little bit lucky. And then the other skills that I mentioned, with Python and some of the latest deep learning and all that, I definitely did a lot of MOOC courses. There are a lot of great courses available in India also. Globally, there are Coursera, edX, different websites. However, one thing I've realized is that if you want to follow that process, you have to be very goal oriented and disciplined, right? Because it's like people think, okay, I'll go and watch some videos and I'll learn, right? That may or may not work, because one thing is when you're watching video, probably your engagement goes down. You're not thinking as much as when you are solving a maths problem, right? So it may not be as effective for some people, right? Second is you need to have the discipline, right? And that's I think is a very big factor which I did not think of earlier, because when you go to some of these websites or YouTube courses, one simple example I'll give: CS Dojo is a very nice YouTube website where you can learn say Python. So first video in that series when he's teaching different Python concept, first video was watched by 5 million people. Okay. Second video, 3 million. third video 1 million. By the time you go to the 10th of the series, you just have probably 10-20,000 people. So you understand what I'm saying, right? So what is happening? It's like joining the gym on a New Year day. A lot of people join and then they leave. Yes, you don't need a trainer to become healthy. You can eat healthy every day and do gymming and become healthy. But for many people, probably it doesn't work right that way. And that is a discipline comes into the process. So if you are very disciplined and goal oriented, I think you can learn a lot of things on your own. But if not, and you need guidance, and a lot of people also want to study in group. They like the social, kind of environment which may be missing in online.
Okay.
So based on, I think, your preference, I think for some people then an online course might work where there will be instructor telling you what to do, not to do. And for some people, if you can afford, and especially if you're fresher, for I think experienced people, it might make sense to do something online, mix of offline, something like that. But if you're fresher and if you can afford, offline, still has a lot of value. Definitely you do your research, find out the parameter. If you're interested in placement, find out about that course and everything. But I think it will depend from people to people. But for many people, even an offline or mix of online might work better. That's what my thoughts are.
Now that you interact with a lot of students, so what do you see them doing?
Well, I would say there is this. I totally agree with Anshuman. You have to be goal oriented. You have to be planned. But what I think is coming through today, even in India, you said India is not really thinking about this totally. I agree, yes, not totally, but things are seeping in. What's happening is that students are getting into what I call micro learning and condensed learning. Those are two different things. Micro learning is like, getting a certificate from Coursera, a small one, small module.
Yeah.
And condensed learning is getting a 12 weeks module condensed into a 5 hours thing. In fact, before this seminar today, this morning, I was teaching a group of students about almost close to 70 something, and they were in China. They were in Xinjiang, right? I am in Cambridge. So the internet connected us, and they were learning. I was teaching. There was no harm. And I have another session next week for 3 hours. So total 5 hours will conclude a 12 hours module, which I have been teaching over here, in 12 weeks time. So there are ways to condense or pick and choose or fragment, slice and dice, whatever you call it. But if you really plan for your career, first thing I would recommend that go for the kind of jobs that you like, not the subjects that you are certified on. Because we have really stressed too much time on getting certificates. Certificates do matter, but during my 30 years of career, what I have learned, one thing I have learned is that companies don't care about certificates if you don't do your job, right? So you have to learn how to do your job. And that is why identify the kind of jobs, identify the kind of skills that you might require, and try to acquire at least the basic idea as much as possible before you get into the professional career. And then obviously you will have to pick up as you go in the job with your colleagues, from the trainings and everything. But you have to be very clear on what you are seeking, not just anything and everything, not just getting your certificate and showing it on LinkedIn or Facebook is very nice. I can imagine how good that feels, but the point is you have to be really sure about that's a worthwhile one, not just a certificate for certificate's sake. So I think that is it. Basically, R and Python are the things, as Anshuman said. If you learn that, you get really some good advantage in your career, and then you have to really choose what kind of career you are going to have, and accordingly you should choose your courses. Scopes are there. You can go for Coursera, MOOCs, and there are quite a few. You can go for online courses, and with the new education policy coming in, and with companies like yours, Sujit, like those who are actually providing the many areas where the new courses could be coming in, new kind of programs, as I am saying, then opportunities will be there. Only thing is that you have to plan and take what's needed. There will be that. And students are doing that all over the world.
Okay. Okay, great. Yeah, go for the things you like. Yeah, this seems to be somebody who's probably already learned some data science. The question is, how can a data scientist make themselves widely marketable? Um, so, is there a way that you can kind of showcase yourself, your talent, and all that? Currently, right now, I'm sure there are issues. Even in this space, there might, I don't know. Is there a supply, what is it, a demand constraint right now because of the pandemic, etc.? Is it difficult to find jobs even in data science? How is it? Okay. Is there a way that you can market yourself that you have this talent? Angshuman, you want to start?
So,
Take that?
yeah.
Nandan? Okay, go ahead. Nandan, go ahead.
No, Angshuman, please.
Okay, so I think let me clarify the question to make sure I understood correctly. He is trying to say that how do you market yourself in the data science field, right?
Absolutely.
Now, that is not a data science question, first of all. It's a marketing question. So I think it's happening a lot nowadays in all these new fields because they're so exciting. There are people who are marketing them, But I think, as Nandanda said, right, in this field especially, some other fields I would say it is a little different because your work is not very tangible, right? So without any any bias towards any particular function, when say I work with some marketing team, the output is not always very tangible, right? You create some ad, what impact it will have in the longer term? Yes, we can collect some data, but it's not very tangible. Whereas I create a data science model and I run it, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. There is nothing like, oh, it is working, maybe working. So the thing is that in the field, right, when you're working, it is very black and white, like mathematics. And that is why some people, I think Nananda rightly said, you also check about your passion, interest, competency, because it may suit some people, may not suit, right? Yeah. Because like mathematics, many people loved it, many people hated mathematics and teachers because if you don't get the right answer, they give you 0, right? So in terms of work, it is very binary or at least less subjective, and there is right and wrong, right? Now, hence, I would not recommend that you don't develop the skills that you are discussing and try to market yourself. Yes, in marketing it may work, but in this field, in the longer term, it may not be the ideal way, right? However, I also understand that once you have learned the things, probably the person is coming from the perspective of job or career or growth, that I know the things, and how do I make sure that people also know or think that I know it. And that I think is a very different skill set. And sometimes I have seen it is diametrically opposite to what we think in terms of mathematics and statistics, right? So in mathematics or statistics, you solve a problem, you get an answer. That's it. However, this is a game of perception, right? And that is where I think some of the things that you mentioned, like marketing, psychology, sociology, how people think, perceive, even communication, personality, these also become very important. So I think it is not very easy for one person to have these two kind of skill, because one is very concrete, mathematical, logical, what we call positivist ideology and research terminology. Other is interpretivist, as in very subjective, understanding people, their psychology, right? Very different kind of skill. But I'm not saying that somebody cannot develop. As Nandanda said, we have Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and many great people who have the best of both science and arts. And this particular thing, I would say, yes, there are science and data, but it also requires some bit of art and psychology and all those things. And if somebody can do, it will be great. But I think in this field, even if you don't do that much, you do your work really well, you do some research, you publish in there are journals like KDD and some of the other areas. There is also Kaggle and other hackathons where people can participate. And if you come on the top on the leaderboard, you don't have to market yourself. If you're a Kaggle grandmaster, or if you have become 3 Kaggle grandmaster and published 10 paper in deep learning, you are an expert. You don't need a marketing for doing that. So I think there is a path. Just by doing your skill and doing your job also, you can become a resourceful person.
For instance, in Sony and all that, Grab and all, these are some of the channels that you use to hire people, data scientists.
Yes, so I think people are using different channels. Yes, I think till now some companies might also use job portals. Like I'm sure Times has some job portal. Naukri is also there in India. So people use job portal, people use LinkedIn, and people also use some of these forums. But I'm saying even if I'm probably some days back I posted a job on LinkedIn, right? However, people who are applying will look at their skill, competencies, experience, and if they have done these publications or hackathons, right, that is always a positive, right? So I'm saying even if company is not hiring from a hackathon, if you have done those things, that is what in this field can market you really well without shouting that I know my stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Nandan, there's a question for you. This is in reference to the apps that you showcased. It says the apps are all wonderful, definitely good, but is it really practical must-have ones?
Practical? Sorry, couldn't get that one.
Are they really practical must-have ones? Because with increased technology, we are just running in the race of I have it too.
Yeah.
So are they really beneficial, differentiating and all that is a question, I think.
Yeah, okay. If I get the question correctly, then probably it is asking whether the apps are a real essential part of our lives. My answer is yes and no, like any British politician would say probably. The thing is, in some sectors, it is not. I'll be very honest. But in some sectors, it is. The answer is yes. For example, where I live, I have to have certain apps, otherwise my life will not move on. Okay, it is just like that, because if I don't have my banking app, I wouldn't be able to pay in time to some organizations. Of course I can, but for that I'll have to go to the bank and pay it physically. Now you can argue that it is a possibility, yes, but it is not a possibility in many places. Number one. Number two is apps also have another implication, which is privacy, and we are concerned about that. And the other thing that you have mentioned, I have it too. Yes, I quite agree. The curse of the consumerism, right? But honestly, in some society, even if you decide not to go for I for it too, sometimes you are obligated to have some minimum number of apps without which you cannot run your life. Now, there are some people who believe they can do that, and they detach themselves from many activities of the society. So if you are ready to do that, absolutely fine. I do that myself. I don't take all the apps all the time. So it's entirely one's own choice. They are not essential, barring a few. But generally, I have seen people initially, those who initially resist, generally they go in and give in to that.
Okay.
So that is what I feel. It is not essential. If I have to answer in one line, no, nothing is essential.
Okay.
I would like to add probably one thing there, as he rightly said that there are few apps which are more essential than others, say a banking app, or maybe some delivery app or something like that. But interestingly, if we actually see the usage of the apps, right, it is the apps which are I will not say useless, but relatively less essential compared to say a banking app, are the ones where people are spending most time. Be it our Facebook or YouTube, and sometime back we had our TikTok, right? And people are spending, when I read about it, like earlier people watch 3-4 hours of TV, and people thought that people will now go from TV to the app, right? What is happening is that people are watching 4 hours of TV and using 4 hours of this app, and I think everybody who is using them know it, that I don't think it is adding so much of career or other tangible value to them. But these apps where we are wasting time are the apps I think people are using. And I'll just add very small comment there, and that's where I think you have to be very careful, because when, as we say, whenever new technology comes, there is a positive and negative, right? So those who use the essential and useful app, there are educational app and you can learn, you can go ahead. 4 hours if you spend every day learning, after 1 year you will become an expert in so many things that people will be after you. Whereas if you spend those 4 hours doing useless things, it will be complete wastage of time. So I think it's up to us, and we should be very careful, especially because I think we humans have a tendency to go for the things which are very convenient and comfortable, but doesn't add that much value, be it junk food or be it less essential apps.
Okay, great. Anshuman, since you mentioned this thing about programming languages, Python and R and all that, I think probably in response to that, there's this question, and it must be from somebody who's not into it at all. How long one would take to learn the programming language, learn a programming language from scratch if he or she is from a different background? And as Nandan said, sociologists, psychologists, anybody can get into this field. So if somebody like that wants to learn a programming language, how easy or quickly can you learn it?
So I think I don't think there is an absolute number or answer to it, because it depends on a lot of factors. So I assume the question is from someone who is not from that field or not from computer programming background.
Yes.
So definitely, I think learning a new language, especially computer language, is not very easy, I would say, right? It's like a language. When we learned first our own languages, be it Hindi or English, it took us some time, and this is also a language, right? However, that is why I think Python has become so popular, or R, because they are relatively simple to learn compared to say Java or C or something like that, which were popular earlier. So relatively, Python would be definitely simple, right? Now, how much time and effort it will take depends on the person. As I said, if you dedicate time and effort, and not only dedicate time to learn, right? Just watching video will not be enough, right? You have to practice. If you learn Python, if you learn list, if you learn a for loop, you have to go and practice that. Without practicing, you might watch the video. After 1 month, you will forget. So practicing is very critical. And if you can keep doing it, if you are a fast learner and if you have some mathematics and some of the core abilities, then probably 2 to 3 months you can start picking up, right? But if you want to become an expert, and that's the other question, how much you want to learn, right? Yes, basic, if you want to start using it, few months, if you dedicate effort every day, I think, and moderately intelligent person can pick up the basics. However, if you want to become an expert, which some of the companies might be looking for senior roles, there I think it will take you the time and effort, right? Like even after using these things for 5 or 10 years, I don't consider myself an expert, and I keep learning every day, right? Yes, there are people smarter than me, but even then, you need to practice. You have to keep learning, and to become an expert, it will actually take few years. You can't become an expert within few months. I'll say it will vary, but it will take at least a few years.
Okay. Now, another I wanted to clarify with this, since you said all kinds of people can get into this space, is learning a programming language, would that become a necessary part of this, or you don't really even need to know? No.
No, it is not a necessary part. It is definitely not a necessary part.
Okay.
No, but if you're coming into the functional side of it, that is, sector knowledge part of it, then you need to understand basically what the language is doing exactly. What's the input? What's the output? Maybe how is it processing the whole thing is not quite that relevant. But the input and output you must understand and realize, but that is not a very big deal. I am not an engineer. I studied physics. I understand basic mathematics and science, but I picked up those understanding pretty well. And I shouldn't say it's very, very difficult. As Angshuman has said, Python is a very logical thing. All you need to do is practice every day. So if you understand how Python works, then you can probably sit with your data scientist in a team and say, look, I am doing this research. I want to have this kind of data insight. So probably I want to have this kind of quantitative and pragmatic subjective data from this kind of inputs. So let us work out our total model where we can grab these data and get this kind of result on which I am philosophizing a strategy. So that's it. No, you don't really have to know ins and outs.
Okay.
I would just like to, if you allow me to, I would just like to add to that. That's a very good point. And I think we said it, but it is important point, so it makes sense to repeat it. That as Nandanda said, the field doesn't matter. You can come and learn. And I also agree with him. So I'll give two answers. One is practical answer for now, and one is probably at a philosophical level. So first, practical answer: yes, you don't need to learn the language, because we also mentioned there are different roles. As a consultant, data consultant, you may not need to learn any language.
Yeah.
So data guy can help you. Even some big companies have data science manager who are not techie or who don't do coding, but their team help them. Also, if you are becoming a data engineer who is working only with database, then SQL may be enough. You don't need Python. So it will depend on your role, and there are a lot of data roles which won't require, data science or Python or programming, right? So that's the scenario now, and I think it will continue for some time. However, I just add one thing at a philosophical level, that the direction that we are moving to, that direction is that we have computer, we have internet, we have so many apps, social media, and in future we may have robots and machines and everything around us. As Nandanda said, in his home he has so many intelligent machines living with him, right? And slowly they will become more and more human with artificial intelligence, or with other aspect of it. We are going to be surrounded, or probably already surrounded, by machines, and in future probably will be living with the machines, and some of us are already doing it, right? And in that context, I think language is very fundamental, right? So humans, we are talking to each other, right? How important it is to know the common language, right? Because we have a common language of communication, what I'm saying, it has certain meaning. You can read it, you can listen to it, you can encode, decode. A very complex processing is going, but you are able to understand a very complex thing with the help of language. And I think language has been probably one of the biggest factors why humans have grown and become so powerful and efficient and innovative. And when we are going to work with machines, and more we are to work with machine, computer language is not the language of the computer. How do you talk to the computer? I know the computer can do it, but what do I tell the computer so that it can do those things? So I think in future, not present, but in future, when you're going to live and breathe with computers and machines in that world, it may not be Python, it may be something else, but knowing whatever that common language of communication with the machines, I think it will become very, very critical.
Absolutely, yeah. I've also heard this people saying, yeah, you should learn to understand the machines. Everybody should learn to understand the machines, because ultimately we are going to be working together in many ways. Yeah. About to, 1 hour is about to end. So, in fact, one of the questions was, which are the industries which are using AI and all that? I guess practically every industry must be now.
Every industry, everyone.
Every industry must be working towards that.
And if not now, they'll be using in future for sure. And as Nandanda said, in London or Singapore, probably more companies or industries are using it. In India, definitely it will follow. However, in the current situation, or probably next 1-2 years, I'll probably name few industries which are little ahead. Others will definitely follow. So definitely technology industry, be it your Google, Facebook, Amazon, be it e-commerce or technology. That is definitely the industry which lives and breathes data. There is nothing without data in these kind of companies. Second is the retail company. They have a lot of data traditionally, because customers go and shop. So because of the availability of data, they have been using a lot of data analysis for a long time. Now they're shifting to data science. And third is a finance, be it your banks, be it insurance and different finance companies. They collect a lot of data about the customer, be it for credit rating, be it for giving loan, for a hell lot of things they use a lot of data. So these three industries have been probably little ahead, but I would say others will follow, and definitely some of the promising areas might be pharma or healthcare. There are some regulatory issues, but they will definitely have a lot of it. Even agriculture will also have a lot of scope. Even government will have a lot of scope. So definitely, as we discussed, every industry and companies will follow. But currently, I think technology, retail, finance, and maybe telecom, these three, four industries are relatively ahead compared to some of the other industries.
Okay. Nandan, entirely. I mean, and like I said at the beginning, I mean, if you see the kind of R&D center, engineering R&D centers that are emerging in, since I'm in Bangalore, let me mention Bangalore. But exactly those three industries that you mentioned the most. I mean, we just recently wrote a story about each of those banks: JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Deutsche Bank, Citibank, you name them. All of them have thousands of engineers today in their centers in India. Oh, and a lot of that is around working around data and analytics, creating those platforms and all of that. Retail, again, Walmart, Amazon, Target, Tesco, you name them, Lowe's, the youth center, all of them, the kind of centers that they're building here. Nandan, any last final, anything that we missed that you want to, anything that we missed that you want to add?
No, not really. So I totally agree with what Angsman has said. Probably I would just add one thing. Maybe biotechnology is coming up in a very big way, and so is education, because I'm talking from the side of the application of technology. Biotechnology has come up with lots of wonders, which are still under, many of those are under testing and stuff like that. Like smart capsule. You can have all your capsule at the beginning of the day if you have to go out, and those capsules will release the medicines within your body at a definite time according to your needs. So, and for that, you are being monitored all the time. Otherwise, how they are going to know your needs? So that kind of application are coming in biotechnology. It is coming into education as well. Maybe in next 5 years, we'll see more human brain interface, like Elon Musk is suggesting, and there are many others, and that will probably revolutionize the industry of education. And there are also, we will need good people there. So that's it, basically, I think.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I think we're running out of time, but since Nandana mentioned that, I would just like to add, one related example. As he rightly said, I think that company that Elon Musk has, Neuralink, and even MIT professors, they are working on, developing some chip which you can put in your brain, and information and knowledge gets into your brain. And I don't know what that implication will be, because it is not just education. That's like that's like human and machine kind of merging together. So a part of your brain is machine which has knowledge, and you're a human. So that is one thing which is very fascinating. And the second thing I have just mentioned, which is not so popular like this other one, is this is, I think, he is one of the most cited and top professor at Harvard, and who was working in the interface of biology and technology, and he's some of the research, at least on the research front, he has already succeeded in creating some electronic material which can be injected in your body, right? So basically, you inject some very small, probably invisible electronic particle inside your body, and that particle can go to any part of the body, monitor it, also send some signal and change, right? So I don't know after that whether it remains a human or it becomes a machine, but just imagine some particle entering your body and controlling everything and monitoring everything, and somebody else sitting somewhere else. It sounds like a sci-fi movie, but this research has been done. I'm not seeing the commercial implication. There will be a lot of, I think, concerns definitely, but in terms of technology, we already have that kind of technology. So I think future is very fascinating, and it can be scary to some people as well, but I think it will definitely be exciting.
Yeah. Absolutely, very fascinating times emerging. I know, despite the pandemic and all that, and I know, great work happening. Yeah, thanks a lot, Nandan. Thanks a lot, Angshuman. Great discussion. You gave a lot of hope to a lot of people. by saying that anybody can get into these spaces, and both of you explained in very simple ways how you can get to being a good data scientist or a machine learning professional. Thanks so much. Enjoyed the discussion myself. I also learned a lot. Thanks again, Nandan. Thanks again,
Thank you.
Angsman. Bye.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
I think we are very honored and privileged to be here. Hope to see
Absolutely.
you soon. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.